Good afternoon, everybody. It's another beautiful day outside in far north Queensland. It's been a really nice day today. I've just literally just spent the day in the kitchen cooking, prepping for the week. That's generally my Sunday. Get the food out ready for the week, so I'm not piss farting around throughout the week wondering what I'm going to eat. I went for a nice walk this morning. That was pretty cool. Saw a lot of people that I haven't seen. Just a good day. And to top it off, we're going to make it an even better afternoon. I've got the fabulous Lisa Lillee here with me this afternoon. How are you, Liz?
Hello. I'm well. I'm well. Yeah,
Um,
you were talking about food then. I was thinking about cupcakes. So, you know,
well, actually, Lisa and I do work together. We are in different departments. We work in the same building. And I think we've only really got to know each other over the last 4 or 5 months, give or take, I think.
yeah, I would say
So
that. I mean, I did
yeah,
know of you beforehand because of your bright, vibrant um, personality in real
persona
life.
and
And then someone said, "Oh no, it's Ben that makes the cupcakes," and I'm like, "Oh." So, but yeah, we
yeah,
really didn't touch base until a little, a
yeah.
little while ago. So yeah, but
And I do make cupcakes at work, and I was actually going to make some today for tomorrow because I'll be in the office tomorrow, and I won't be in the office next week. But you know what? I couldn't
yeah,
be.
hot to make them today. And it is
I couldn't be
they're a hot
asked.
commodity, let me tell you, because like when that
Yeah,
happens, people are like running to their desk to get them.
yeah,
I
they
think
are.
that's why, because I'm just like, oh my god, I missed that again.
They are pretty popular. And I actually made extras. So normally, instead of a dozen, I'll make 2 dozen. I'll make 24. So
No, well, they're
because
fabulous.
they're
It's just one of your many talents, Ben.
they're that popular. So I'm not going to make some today. I'll make them in 2 weeks. So,
Right.
but and you won't be there because we
No,
do
I just was thinking that
alternative.
then, but
Yeah, that's right.
I'll have one in spirit. I'll have one
I,
in spirit.
I might keep a couple in the fridge and say hands off.
This one's for her.
That's it. So thanks for I appreciate you giving me the time this afternoon to have a chat just about
Oh, thanks for
obviously with
having me.
Movember. That's okay. Men's health, women's health as well, obviously. So um, I obviously I am seen at work, obviously with the pink hair and the pink moustache. And sometimes a lot of people don't realize actually what I do for Movember, what it does for me. I sound like a cult, but it's giving back to those people who need the support. Okay, and that's what it
Yeah.
obviously comes down to. And like with breast cancer awareness as well. This will be the 17th year I've been with Movember, and Movember been going for 20 years, I do believe. Don't quote me on that, but I've been with them for 17 years. Um, Feels like a lot. I've raised over $20,000 in that
Oh, wow.
time. So that's pretty awesome. And a lot of the things that I do are physical challenges. Like probably the last 6 years,
Yes.
I've done a lot of running.
Yeah, I've seen you do those. I think you do one year, and I'm like, wow, because it came out in an email. I'm like, wow, he's crazy.
Yeah,
He's
and a
doing
lot
really
of,
well.
well, I rode my bike down to Brisbane 2 years ago, so that was even crazier. Push bike on the Bruce Highway. We all, if you're from Queensland, what the Bruce Highway is like,
That's
especially.
dangerous. That's dangerous stuff.
It is. It was immensely dangerous. So it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly.
No, not at all. And I think in that respect, that's why it's really good because obviously, there are lots of fundraising events and they do come up, yearly or whatever, but it really takes certain people to keep the momentum going and to, make it a little bit different. So just your presence with the pink mo and the pink hair, I mean, that
Mm.
really is just the difference that makes you stand out. And I think that's what makes people take notice, and we know that when people take notice, and that's when the most difference is made. Sometimes when I've seen a statistic for something and it's like this is the biggest this or this is the biggest that, and it's because it's not widely known that nothing happens. So it's really about getting the message out, and I think that you do a really good job
Yeah,
in
thank
that
you.
respect. So
Yeah, thank you.
work.
I know, and that's why I'm kind of doing something different this year. Like doing something physical, obviously, does take a lot of mental clarity to do that, depending on what you're doing, obviously. And
Mhm.
then there's lots of physical challenges out there which people are doing, and that's great. I'm all for it because I've been there, done that. But this year, it's like, let's just kind of take a step back and just think about what Movember means for people. And I'm not talking about just Movember.
Mhm.
No, we're talking about women's health as well when it comes to stuff like breast cancer awareness, stuff like that. But it's just not all about that. It's, obviously a lot of men go through mental health.
Yep.
The main reason for Movember started off with prostate cancer and testicular cancer. But
Yep.
obviously then things change, society changes, the world changes, people change. You looking into the fact that obviously there's mental health, there's suicide awareness, suicide prevention, all that kind of stuff. And what made me do the pink was like, it was 8 odd years ago after last week of November, I literally got a spray can, a coloured hairspray, $5 at the shop, got a bowl, got a dodgy paintbrush, literally just sprayed the can into a bowl, got the brush and brushed my mo pink. That
Yep.
was literally it. And that it was like that for the last week. So it was me giving back to the Mo sisters that have supported me over the years, and there's
Yeah.
been a shit ton of you. And it's me just giving thanks back to them, but obviously raising awareness for breast cancer. So, and it kind of just had a flow-on effect from that. It
Yeah.
just gradually went along, went along. Tradition, if you've been traditional with Movember, you clean shaven at the start of the month, then you grow your mo. What you do after that, that's up to you. Whether you keep
You can
it,
run
whether
with
you
it.
shave
Yeah,
it.
for
I
sure.
haven't shaved for 2 years. So this has been on for 2 years. And prior to that, I had a massive beard as well, like a real big fuck off
And
beard.
that's a movement in itself, right?
Yeah, that's it, exactly. Yeah, that's another story. But it was, it was probably after COVID, would have been probably 21, I reckon, when I was kind of still around,
Mm.
that, I had to make some decisions in my life, and it was a decision I couldn't take lightly, but it was a decision that made me really reevaluate some things,
Yep.
which had to happen. So, and that's kind of when the the transformation changed, because
Yep.
I used to shave my head when I used to race in triathlons. I just shaved my head. I was
Yep.
bald, literally.
It's easier off than on.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I got quite used to that. But then one afternoon we had lost power. There was some mini cyclone came through
Hmm.
and lost power for like a day and a half, which was ridiculous. But I had a bit of bum fluff going on, so I thought, you know what? What can I do? I'm bored, so I just got some clippers and just started shaving the sides,
Yep.
and and then it transformed into what you see now. And I haven't I haven't cut my hair since then. Since I started growing my hair back, I haven't cut my hair at all. You had the tips done,
Yep.
but actually having a proper haircut, I haven't had a haircut in about 4 to 5 years now, and that's kind of that transformation from what I used to be and what I used to look like into what I look like now, and having that permanent change when it comes to giving back to the my sisters that have supported me. Obviously, this is a change, and like I've said to a lot of people, I said I'm not changing for anybody.
No, I
This is
think
it.
it
I'm
makes
going to
people
be.
take notice. I think it's good.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I don't think. I mean, I hope that we're not in a state where people would be saying things negatively about anything like that. I mean, I'm sure that there would have been someone saying something, but I think as far as what the purpose is and why you do it, I mean, I think it fits perfectly, and you do wear it very well. So pink,
yeah. And I'm and
pink
I'm
is probably
quite.
one of my favorite colors, and I've had my hair pink. But I'd be maybe not wearing it as well as you do. So let's see. I mean, you wear the undercut and everything well, so I think it definitely suits you. So it's good.
Yeah, it does, and I get I am due for a shave along the side, so you can kind of see my tattoo a little bit better.
Looks fab.
Um, yeah, it does. It does. I was a bit unsure about that. I did a photo shoot with my hairdresser probably in um, mid-April, I think it was, and for a competition. And there was six of us. There were six guys, all with different color. So blue, yellow, green, red,
And pink.
pink. No, there's one more. Blue, yellow,
Purple.
green, purple. Yeah. So there was six of us, and obviously, they all had to change into the colours that they were designated, but I didn't, because that's what I used to. That's what I wear. That's,
You
that's what I
resonate
wear the
pink
whole
now.
time.
That's it. That's,
Yeah.
that's the signature. It's almost like a signature, and I think branding, like a personal brand, especially when you're attached to this kind of stuff,
Well,
it's
that's it.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes a
And
connection.
it makes an impact for people. And when we did that photo shoot, we got some temporary tattoos done, hands, little bits on the face, but there was a big one on the side here. And as soon as she put it on, and we looked at each other, and Lex and I went, "Yeah, I need to get a head tattoo. I think it's time." And there was much discussion about it at home, and
Yep.
there was lots of changes and um, and design changes, I should say, because it's very permanent. And going from one to the other, and we finally settled on what you see now. So, but
It looks
that's
really
that,
cool.
and
I
I've
mean,
said,
it's brave to get one there too. Like I said, I can't imagine that. I mean,
oh,
look,
it,
tattoos
it
don't tickle,
didn't
they
tickle.
don't, they hurt, right? But right there, I mean, that's got to be a real sensitive part of your body. And I mean, you're either tattooed, you either are or you're not. So once you start getting them, you really can't stop getting them, and they tend to get bigger and more elaborate. And I think tattoos over the years have really changed. I see the generation below us now, they've got a real different style to how they place tattoos, like they place them randomly, whatever. Whereas I would always put mine kind of together. But yeah, I think that there is quite a statement, which is exactly what you're going for, and it's good.
Well, that's it, and it's got a meaning behind it as well. It's just not something
Which it
random.
should if you inked it into your skin.
Well, that's right. Well, you'd be surprised what people do on their bodies when it comes to tattoos.
That's it. That's it. I saw a guy on the train once. I remember he had what's that cartoon character Marvin the Martian, and I'm like, I mean, to get that tattooed into your skin, you'd have to really like that cartoon, or there'd have to be something behind it. Because I mean, each their own. Obviously, some people just do it, but I mean, it's such a permanent thing to have that you might not like a little bit later.
Yeah, one of the guys that I used to work with years ago, he had Ron Swanson on his arm from Parks and Recreation. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, each to their own. Everyone's different. There has to be a reason
I know.
behind
I mean,
what
I,
they
I like
get.
that brand. I worked with a guy and he used to have the little 4X fella, the little guy with the yellow hat. He
Yeah,
had that
yeah.
down on his leg, and I was just like, but then as I got to know him, I'm like, I see this, but he wore it proud. So yeah, I like tattoos. My son, he's completely against them. He doesn't like them at all. So and he's young, so there's that real difference, that generational difference. But yeah, I'm all for them. I like them.
He might change. He might come around. He
He
might.
might, but I remember I was at his age. I was almost sneaking off to get my first. So there's certainly a change in the way they, the way that they think about them.
Yeah, yeah. My eldest has got one on his forearm. He's looking at another one that he's going to get soon.
Yep.
My youngest, they're only a year apart, so my youngest, he's going to get one soon. It's just when he's bothered to getting around to doing it, I suppose. But
Yep.
but
I don't know
again,
if you felt the same, but when I mean, because I got a sleeve, and when I did mine, because it was related to or the reason that I got it, which was quite emotional, the process of getting the tattoo with the pain and the emotion and everything, it was quite part of an important part of my journey moving forward. At the time, my tattooist had to keep stopping because he was in tears, and he had tears in his eyes. He's like, "Oh my goodness, Lisa, I can't do this." So it was such an emotional experience. So just that connection from that, and that's how the ripple effects kind of start. He'll remember that, and then that's how the message gets out. But I definitely did, the pain for that one was much more intense and
yeah,
lived than it was for like the little tramp stamp that I got on my ankle when I was 18. So
yeah, yeah. So there's definitely a meaning behind something which is significant and something that
Yeah,
you kind of that's seen on your
yeah,
body as
yeah. And it's
opposed
like
to something which is
like a
hidden.
warrior mark, like a this is my story and I'm going to own it and live it. Um, yeah. So
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what I do when it comes to um, women's health. You know, I know that there's a lot of causes out there, and people are impacted by lots of different reasons. You know, a good friend of mine, she lost her husband to brain cancer not too long ago.
yeah,
So she's obviously really behind that, and trying to get support for herself and her family can be difficult. I know with us, and I've utilized it before. I'm not sure if you have, but with the employment assistance program,
yep.
you use that. Have you used that at all at work?
I have in my previous job. Um, I had a fairly I had a, a we lost our 5-year-old daughter in 2016 under fairly tragic circumstances. So I was working at a different job then. They did have an EAP program. At the time, I didn't use it for myself, but I did actually look into it because the services that were offered were actually quite generous in regards to like I mean I had looked at them before, but I hadn't actually looked deeply into them. And at that workplace that I was, the EAP program provided counselling for my immediate family. So the loss in itself didn't have to actually have anything to do with work itself, but because obviously I was suffering that, I was able to get a certain amount of free counselling, but it also offered it to my immediate family members, so my mum, my husband, my sister, like those kind of people. I think too. I think my mum did utilize it once, but I mean she's the older generation, so they didn't really want to. But my sister certainly um, used it as well. So, and that was all kind of free. It was all anonymous as well. So
Yeah,
I think at that point, with what we had gone through, it was really important just to be able to, you know, express some things to kind of help process that, because the sad reality of any kind of situation like that, or losing a husband or wife or anything like that, is that at a certain point, life keeps moving forward, and it's really difficult to be able to slot back into that routine when you have lost something so profound. One of the big things that I always said after Harper's accident was that it was like living in a parallel universe where everything was different, but everything was the same. And it was really hard for me just to be able to gather the momentum, just to do the most basic tasks every day. And the reality of it is the mortgage still needs to be paid. Kids still need to take kids to school and things like that. Like it just has to. You cannot like literally fall in a nothing numbness for too long, because everything is going ahead with or without you. So
yeah, that's it.
really,
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear about your loss. That would have been absolutely just an absolutely terrible circumstance. With and you found the support good.
so myself, I didn't use EAP. My family, a few members of my family did. The actual, we were offered some assistance from the hospital. They kind of gave us a little bit of a direction, because also in our situation, there's so much going on. Like I didn't know where to look, and I mean I'm not silly or anything, but it was just kind of like I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing or how to kind of put things in front of like what where I go for that kind of thing. So I ended up, it was through the advice that I've been given from, I think we had a social worker and we also had like a counsellor at the hospital, but they gave us some information, and I went and saw my GP, and then my GP was able to create a mental health care plan, and then from that I was given like access to, I could go and choose a local therapist, which I did. And I mean, I've been really lucky because the therapist that I chose just off the bat, and I don't remember how I chose them, it might have been just like a picking a name out of a hat kind of thing. I've been with her now since then. So I mean, in the beginning, I was probably seeing her every 2 weeks, and then it kind of petered out. I see her now every few months, but it's still the same person. So I've almost been seeing her for
Yeah, that's
10 years.
good. You
Yeah.
kind of, I think a lot of people who have, no, I've had a psychologist for 7 or 8 years, give or take,
Yep.
same one, and you want to. I'm not sure if people have issues initially, and you touched on it briefly about knowing what direction to go,
Yeah.
because we kind of, and I said, we're not stupid, but if
Yep.
something profoundly bad happens in your life,
Oh,
you're kind of stuck in a
information
spot
that
where
would
you
be
don't know where to
normal
go.
just literally falls out of your head and you don't know what to do and where to look.
Yeah,
Like it is,
yeah,
it's really very discombobulating because everything just kind of comes apart and you don't know what you're supposed to be doing. And then myself, I struggle with the whole the thoughts would be, oh, I should be doing this or I should be doing that, and that just adds extra pressure that nobody needs. I mean, this far along in my journey, I've come full circle with that, so I'm much better at that now. But my husband, he struggled with it a great deal too, because men and women, in that, like in our situation, it's very different on how things, like how you kind of are able to interact with others, and also how you go on that path to, like, how you navigate that path to recovery. He did see someone in the beginning, but he also didn't last very long because it just didn't gel. But I also knew just from him, because it's that, again, it's that generational thing about what we believe men should be, of our age. They don't do this or they don't do that. And so I know that he really struggled in the beginning with being able to be truly in touch with that kind of letting that emotion out, because it had been so guarded up, his whole life, that being able to do that really felt like fitting a square peg in a round hole. And at that point in time, I mean, I wasn't in a position to be able to productively be giving him guidance because I was just in the same spot myself.
yeah.
So,
That's right. Yeah,
for the first
exactly.
few years, we were really just like, just in the dark, walking around in the dark, like we didn't know what we were doing. He ended up not seeing anybody for a little while after that first one. It didn't really work, and then he thought he'd be able to do it on his own. And then it was a little while later that I said, you've got to see somebody, because it's not helpful. And
Yeah,
he
it's
ended up
not
finding
healthy.
someone else. And then that second person that he saw was just fabulous, and he got such a better response out of that second person, who he sees every so often now, but he certainly doesn't go regularly. But he was able to do lots of different therapies and stuff, and it really, really worked for him. And I can safely say that if either of us or one of us didn't have that kind of professional help, we wouldn't have remained married after the fact, because it's just too much to be able to process and move forward with jobs and our son and the rest of it.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
And from that,
having
I've been really particular about you know in our path forward, just making sure that we are demonstrating for our son what's healthy and what's not. I have noticed, not anyone specific, I won't mention anyone specific, but that the people who are older than us, they tend to not talk about things that make them very sad. And I don't think that is productive at all. I certainly don't, from the very beginning, I was always very particular about making sure that we still spoke about Harper like she was here and stuff like that. It was much more difficult, but it was really important for me to show my son that, although it might make you feel terribly sad, we need to be able to live with that, to be able to keep it with us to move forward. Because if we purposely push it back, it'll just rear its ugly head somewhere else when you least expect it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and how old's your son now?
He's 16, delightful 16. I actually babysat my 3-year-old nephew yesterday, and he was just delightful because he says, I love you, and he does all this, and he's talking and hugging and all that kind of stuff, which Nate used to do, but Nate's very one-word answers now and stuff like that. So lots of parents of teenagers who've also said, oh, that's just their age and they'll come back. I'm dying for him to come back to me, because 16, it's very, all about themselves.
I've been there. I've done that. I did it with my boys. There,
That's what
my
I'm
boys.
constantly doing. Going, God, did I do this? But
Yeah,
I give him,
nah,
enough space.
nah.
But yeah,
My boys they're a year and 13 days apart in age, so they're very close in age.
yep.
So they are. Yeah, I've been through that, and
Well, two for one.
it comes good. It becomes good.
I hope so. Look, he's not bad. Both Rich and I are incredibly proud of him. He's done very well in the face of what he's had to go through,
Yeah.
having lost his little sister, who they were very close. I mean, they weren't as close as your boys. There's only 22 months between them. So, you know, there was a lot there. And I didn't really, I didn't realize it at the start, I think, because I couldn't see it. But there was a lot of pressure upon him because it was like everybody was like, oh, you know, Nate's our shining light. And this is this in the wake of such a tragedy. And then I kind of cottoned onto it one day and I'm like, wait, that's too much for him to have. I don't want to be piling that upon him, because he kind of took on this burden of not wanting to make anybody sad or upset because we kept referring to him as such. So I really had to go around and just say, look, don't say that about him, because yes, he is, but don't give him that pressure of having to just because he doesn't want mum or dad or whoever to be sad about what's happened.
Yeah, have that label put upon him is going to put extra pressure on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that with the conversations that I've been having, obviously all walks of life, different ages, different sexes, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I had a good, you know, I could probably say that I'm pretty open I am open and honest with my boys. They understand what I do.
Yep.
They're not afraid to talk to me about any concerns that may have. I'm always open with them, saying, hey, you know, if you got any dramas, whatever it is, you know, we can talk about it and we can come up with a plan, or we can do something. And I think, you know, generational, you know, we are
I think there's such a
roughly the
difference
same
between
age.
I think there's a real difference in parenting between how maybe we were brought up. Like, I will say to Nate, you know, if you make a mistake, I'd rather that you tell me. I want him to feel safe in a space to be able to make a mistake, that he can come to us and then we can help him, rather than be petrified about what our response is going to be if he makes a mistake. Because I think that's certainly how I was brought up. So I don't want him to be like that. Also, I don't want him to be completely careless and whatever because he thinks he's always going to get, you know, us to help him out of anything. He has to understand consequences, which he does. But it's hard to flip the script on how to parent when by default you are completely the opposite. And especially in regards to mental health, I think, you know, I want to raise a strong son. I want him to be assertive and everything else, but I also want him to be a protector. So there's lots of different things that, and I don't know how to do it, right? I mean, I've done this before, so I'm waiting around in the dark with this one too, but I'm trying to be honest with him, and the things that come to me by default, which I know haven't been helpful when I was growing up, I have really made a point in those moments to stop, turn around and go, okay, no, this is what it is, and just be honest with him, which I think he has responded quite well to. But I mean, it's not easy to do at all.
And I think there's a definite shift when it comes to the generations. So our generation, as opposed to our parents' generation, as opposed to our children's generation, as opposed to what our grandchildren's generation is going to be like. I think the way that we're raising our children now is definitely going to have a positive effect on their own children moving forward. Then when we're talking about, obviously, when it comes to mental health and stuff like that, because that's something that's never going to go away. It's just going to become more open within the community and within society.
And I do think too, because I mean, I think we're just at the early stages of it. You know, we do still have a lot of stigma around, you know, certain things, whether it's your gender or, you know, your race or possibly, you know, your occupation, you know, who's allowed to talk up about what and things like that. I think the media have a lot to say for what they do. I have a real hate relationship with how media bends things, and it can be quite detrimental to, and that also ties into, you know, the age of social media and how people are just free to say whatever the fuck they want, and it's just so very damaging. I know one of the discussions that we had with Nate, because of course, you know, mobile phones, they're prevalent. We didn't have mobile phones when we were in school, so you know, trying to not have him shut down and, you know, go, oh, okay, it's the mobile phone talk again. I'm just like, no, here's the thing, buddy, is that I said, you know, you're not doing anything particularly more stupid than what Dad and I were doing at your age. The thing is, we didn't have something that was there to record us doing it, and the whole detrimental effect that could have after the fact is really, it's quite real indeed. And I don't, you know, as your parent, I'm trying to protect you from exposing, you know, just by something that is completely, you know, not intended or innocent, that gets it's run with on social media and it goes somewhere else, and it's really quite affecting. Because, you know, when we see these reports of these young people taking their lives because of stuff like, you know, that kind of bullying. I mean,
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think everybody at some point or another, when you're at school, you know, you got stick from somebody else, but you could go home and be in a safe space where there wasn't any of that going on. There is simply no safe spaces when we have technology that just exposes anywhere and everywhere. And that to me makes me really heightened about that kind of stuff. And I do think that being more honest and open about mental health struggles is the only way to be able to kind of combat that. And especially in the younger, well, because Nate is my son, but the younger male generation, I think it's really, really important, especially when there's so many influences online too that sway, you know, one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a good friend of mine, she's a teacher on the Sunshine Coast, and I was talking to my eldest about the impacts mental health has at school.
Yep.
And obviously it was, you know, for me going to school in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
there was obviously nothing about mental health whatsoever, you know, at a school level. And when
Nothing.
he graduated, I'm not sure if it was with your son, but I know when he graduated there was really nothing, and that was 5 years ago, give or take.
Yeah,
There
see,
was real
it's
no
fairly new. I
impact.
mean, it's not that long ago, really. It's really not that. I mean, 5 years isn't long at all.
No, no. And my friend was saying, like, you know, where she teaches, there's a good conversation around mental health and the impact that it has with students at school. And then, you know, when you're looking at mental health amongst you know, young teenagers, whether it be boys or girls, you know, you're looking at stuff like, you know, peer pressure,
Mm.
body image, stuff like that. And obviously, when we're talking about body image, it's just not about girls. There's always that stigma behind,
No.
you know, eating disorders when it comes to young girls.
Yeah.
It impacts boys as well. And when they see these guys all ripped and six packs and all that
Yeah.
kind of shit, and it's
Yeah.
like, you know, who am I, you know, am I supposed to be looking up to these people?
Yeah.
How's that having an impact on my own life?
Yep. But also, you know what, I'm most one of the things I'm most scared about is like I'm not technological at all, but the way that the algorithms flood uh our social media with that. Like if you click on it once or whatever, and or if it can hear you or whatever, then it's pushing all of this stuff at you, you know, like it I've even seen it with mine. Like I can't see things on mine that I know are there, and I've got to go looking for them because I've looked at something else. So my whole news feed is just flooded with this instead of something else. And that really, I find that so invasive because it's just taking, and I mean, I understand what it's been developed for, but I think the negative gear to that has far outtaken what its original you know, intent was. Because if I want to look for something, I can look for it myself. I don't need it shoved in my face over and over and over again from 50 different websites, you know. So that kind of stuff in itself makes me, you know, especially with those kind of fragile younger minds. I mean, I'm not so much influenced by that now, but I can see how people are. I had a friend of mine who was one day normal, and then, I mean, whatever normal is, but then she got really, really, really influenced by QAnon, and then, I mean, it just took off, and I was gobsmacked to see it, the stuff that was being put out, and I thought to myself, oh my God, and look, I'm all up for conspiracies, I am, but I just couldn't understand how much it had overtaken where she was
I
at before.
I know. I heard all the talk with the government about banning social media for children under 16.
I don't
Um,
actually know how they can do that.
well,
I don't know whether, I mean, I know
no,
there's a ruling for it, but productively how
yeah,
they do it.
yeah, well, that's it. And me neither. But I actually saw the ad for the first time yesterday, I think. I can't remember when it's
I've
actually
seen
going to
it
be
yet, so
rolled
good.
out, but I think
Yeah.
it's going to be rolled out pretty soon. But yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see how that eventuates and what happens with that, because you touched on it earlier with, and I I do believe the young girl was in the Northern Territory, who lost her life from suicide for incestive bullying.
Yeah.
There's a blue color surrounded. I just can't recall her name off the top of my head.
Was it
Um,
Dolly? Is it Dolly? I can't remember. There's been a couple.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It could be, but I remember it was coming from that bullying from schools and stuff like that, and then
Yeah.
having that ongoing effect with, obviously, with her mental health, and obviously
Yeah.
she couldn't take it. I remember when I was at school, it was about passing notes around that incriminated you for stuff, and
Right.
you can get that bit of
Attention.
paper and
Get it,
burn it and throw
and
it in
it's
the bin, and
destroyed,
that's
and
it. It's gone.
it's not reproduced anywhere or whatever else, or you can't get online. But and I think that the severity in that, which is the message that we've always tried to give Nate about, once it's out there kind of thing. Please, I've said to him, if you ever get, of course I expect you to talk to girls, whatever else. I said, but if you ever get someone asking you to send a dick pic, please don't do that. Sorry, but it's
Yeah,
just, please don't do that kind of stuff, because it is just more trouble than it's worth. And the way that things are being infiltrated now, to sound like somebody else. I mean, it's not always the elderly people who don't know what they're doing who are getting tricked by these people. It's lots. So and because there's so many different ways and that this kind of stuff can come in, that's why I think the actual focus upon mental health is what we need to do. Because I mean, once we close that door, well, that door will open, right? So
mm,
it's always going to be coming from somewhere. So it's about being able to combat it from here, rather than keep trying to close these doors that are inevitably always going to be opening. And when they're all shut, well, someone's going to climb in a window. You know what I mean? So it's always going to come from somewhere. Um,
yeah, yeah. That's it. When talking about the generational gap, when you mentioned that your mother used the employment assistance program, what was did she find that, coming from a different generation where the stigma behind speaking to a psychologist is not
oh,
normally
it was
as,
tenfold, because
yeah,
not a great communicator to begin with. So I really forced upon that. And it was just because I knew the kind of struggle that was being had. So I
yeah,
was kind of like, because, there was always an excuse. I can't do this, or this too much, or this. And I'm just like, okay, so this, I mean, basically was just served on a platter. So I think it was just kind of gone along with begrudgingly, just because at that point I was in such a state and I just had really forced it. But it certainly wasn't, I mean, I think it was only like, I think the offer was like 6 sessions or something.
she
And
found it beneficial.
was that, sorry?
She found it beneficial.
No, so
Eh,
I think she only applied to two, she only went, or she only took, because it was all online. I think she did two, and then she didn't do anything else after that. So I mean, I the closest relatives that, like my in-laws, my parents, and a couple of other people that were there the night of the accident, they certainly didn't seek that kind of assistance. It's almost like they'll do it in-house, like they don't do that kind of stuff. Whereas myself, my husband, my sister-in-law, same age, like we all went out and we had that kind of professional help. So it really you could see just from that tier what does and what doesn't, kind of thing. So and look, I think early on I was more, um when I kind of got the energy back about myself, I was more focused on making it aware that that's what, it's only for the better. But as I've kind of moved on even further, I'm just like, I don't have it in me to make people see that kind of stuff. Like, if you don't want to do it, I'm not going to force you to do it. I mean, with in the case of my mum, even if I had made her do it, I don't know that she would have got out of it what I would have hoped she would have, because I just think there's that real shutter that kind of goes up, and that's just from the upbringing. So yeah, I what's that saying about leading a horse to water? You can't you can't really force anything. I mean, I can see the benefits, but whether
Yeah, that's it.
you
Whether
really have to be
they
able to
can.
want to do it, yourself, to be able to
Yeah, I suppose
that
it's like anything. Like if you want to quit smoking,
if you're
you
not really
kind of
ready to do it, you
you're
won't
not
do it.
ready to
Doesn't
do
matter
it.
how many things you do. I think what one of the biggest things that I got out of having to have, the therapy that I did is, and it's not that I didn't believe it before, but I certainly did have a perception before about what depression was, and what it meant to me. I was always of, sound body and mind, and I thought, I don't think that I would get, so out about something that I would ever be depressed. And I certainly didn't. It's not like I didn't believe it for anybody else, but I was under the absolute certain thing that I wouldn't have that myself. And I mean, I don't really remember where it was, like how long in the journey it was, but I remember seeing some notes written down, and it had the words clinical depression and PTSD. And it hit me like a freight train, which looking back now is really kind of silly, because of course that's exactly what I had
Yeah,
with
exactly.
everything that had
Yeah,
happened. I mean, that was obvious, but just seeing it written in some kind of professional, like it's cemented, and I'm like, oh, and it's kind of like I didn't realize I was there until I was there. And then the whole understanding of just how it can affect you, and what that means in your life. I was offered from my GP to, go into some medication and things like that, which I did try, but it just put me in a state of, um, permanent, like it switched off things. And so I'm just, going through the motions and clicking things over, but there was really no emotion in my life. And what I identified from that was, even though for me that might have been the easier way out at that time, so that I didn't have to be completely overwhelmed with this just awful feeling of grief and sadness from losing Harper. But I just realized that if I did that, the longer I stayed on that, I mean, I couldn't be on it for the rest of my life. And when I would come off it, well, that shit was just going to hit me like harder than it ever did before. So I really just made myself sit in it and learn how to live with it. And then ultimately, that is what has been able to, get me to where I needed to be,
yeah.
later on. I mean, look, it's not that kind of, that's not for everybody. That's just how I
Well,
did
that's it.
things.
Yeah, and the conversation that we're having today, we are not trained professionals.
No.
We are going by what experiences that we've had in our lives.
Mm.
I was talking to a good friend of mine last night who's based on the Gold Coast, and she's very spiritual in her beliefs,
Yep.
and she's very passionate about mental health. We studied our diploma in mental health together, and she obviously when we're talking about not just like the physical side of things, but like and the mental, but we're kind of adding in the spiritual kind of things.
Mm.
And a lot of people get a bit what's the word, buddy? When you hear about spiritual, they're either thinking religion or they're thinking about someone who's meditating and umming for 2 hours in a corner and stuff like
Yep.
that. It's kind of not really for them. But then obviously when we're talking about just your own self being when you're going through shit in your life, whatever the case is,
Yep.
there's what's stopping you from actually just going outside on a day like today and just getting that sun in your face, even
Yeah.
if you just lay down on the grass
Yeah.
and just feel that sense of
Yeah.
warmth over
Yeah.
your body.
100%. 100%. I mean, look, I wasn't out of touch with that beforehand, but I think, um, after that, my appreciation for the things that not only we take for granted, but just being able to go outside and take my shoes off, or stand somewhere where it's quiet and breathe, the real sensory overload of exactly what my humanity is, and what makes up every part of me, and to appreciate what I have. I know my husband struggled with things like that in the beginning, you know how when it's a cliche about, oh, you see a butterfly or you see a rainbow or whatever. And I was, from the beginning, I was like, look, there's Harper, say good morning. And he really struggled with that. And he said to me one day, he said, I feel like a fraud. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, because he said, I didn't believe in that shit beforehand, so why would I believe in it now? And I'm like, who's got the rule book on this, mate? Like, there's no playbook that says what you can and can't do. If you didn't believe in it before, that's fine. If you believe in it now, that's also fine. Because if seeing a rainbow makes you smile about our daughter, then that is part of the journey. It doesn't matter what you think is a perception of anybody else. And I mean, I broke it down just so simply. And he was like, oh, you're right. And so now, and he has for a long time, he's kind of joined in with that stuff, but he really struggled with it at the beginning because of the preconceived idea that he had,
Yeah, yeah,
what he had done before. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. And I think a lot of the constraints that people struggle with these days are the rules that we have placed upon ourselves about what we think we should be doing, or what we are meant to be doing, or what we think other people should think of us. And in the beginning, I remember when my therapist had said that I was a very because I thought I was selfish to a point. She said, you're so far from selfish. She said, you do things for other people first. I said, no, I don't. She said, yeah, you do. And I couldn't see it. And then it wasn't until like the clarity kind of came a little bit more. And then I'm like, oh my God, I do. But flipping that was very difficult. And it caused a lot of problems when I first went, no, I'm not doing it this way, I'm doing it this way, which puts me first. And it really did cause quite a little hurricane within our smaller, bubble of people, because they just weren't used to it. And I felt guilty, and it brings along all like range of other stuff as well. So it's
that happened to me when I had to reevaluate some things in my life. Kind of flip the switch, which people hadn't seen that part of me. And
yeah, and they don't know how to react or what to
nah,
do.
and I had to make that change within myself and within
Yeah.
my family,
Yep.
because there was circumstances that need to be reevaluated in life, and family was more important at that time.
Yep.
So, but then when going back, when now when your husband sees a rainbow, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, that's it. And
You're
that's what I was trying to
yeah,
explain to him about it being, that I don't want, if we see something so beautiful like a rainbow, I want the feeling to be a happy one. I don't want it to be a one of guilt because of all this other stuff that has clouded what the actual focus is here, which would be
yeah,
her.
yeah,
So
that's right.
but I think, I've been able to deconstruct that easier than what he has. And I think that's simply because of, he didn't do any of that stuff beforehand. It wasn't like
Yeah,
it. So I
yeah,
mean, he's much more. I mean, I remember when he said to me, he thanked me one day randomly, like we were in after dinner, we're getting ready for bed or something, and he said, thank you, honey. And I said, what's that for? And he said, because he said, for a long time, just looking at a photo of Harper would make me very sad. And he said, but you really have been able to change that. And I want to, because I would always be like, oh look, here's today's memory or something, and I would force it, because I wanted him to. And I wanted, it is sad, like it is that sad thing, but I don't.
Mhm.
What we need to, I can live for the rest of my life sad, my days and everything else, or I can live the rest of my life to make her proud. There's a difference. It's a complete difference, and it's a choice. So with being able to do that, and when he said thank you that day, I was like, wow. And he goes, no, I now, and then he's coming to me with these kind of things and laughing at them. And that's because, I mean, when in regards to loss, when something like that happens, those are the kind of things, they're the only things that you have left. You don't get to make any new memories or things like that. So you have to really, treat them with such the precious energy that they are. And they have to be something that you love, not something that you dread to look at or dread to see, pop up on your Facebook feed.
Yeah, and that's kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to social media. You've got all this impact and you've got these influences and all that stuff. But then when you see a
Well, it's a
memory come
storybook of
up,
your life, right? It's a storybook
yeah,
of the
well
life
that's
if
it. And
you're a
then when you
prolific
see a memory
poster.
come up of a circumstance in your life, and
Yep.
I'm a very emotional person. It doesn't take me much to cry at the drop of a hat when I see something which really impacts within my life. You go through all those reels of family coming home and stuff like that.
Oh,
For
me
example,
too.
I just go blah 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 blah.
100%. If I see the ones like the armed forces coming back and they see their little brother or sister or something, they're hiding
Yeah.
behind the door, I'm like already crying before they come out from the door.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I lose my shit at that
Oh, but I
sometimes.
mean, I'll cry at One Born Every Minute on like the Discovery Channel. So like I'd cry at a freaking Kleenex ad with a roll of toilet paper and a duckling. Like I am very much, it would just come out of me. So
Yeah.
um,
Sometimes I wonder if I'm hormonal at the time. You know, I know men get hormonal. Uh, so I've had myself tested. I'm okay.
uh, that was
But
good.
that's just me. That's just me as a person who wears his emotion on his sleeve,
Yeah.
who dares to be different, to make an impact in someone's life. And you don't know what impacts you're having on somebody. You don't know what impact your husband's having on somebody.
You just don't. I don't know if I've spoken to you about this previously, but there was something that came to me a while ago. It was a poem about the I'll have to find it and give it to you, but the number of yous that are out there. And I didn't understand the concept of it, but I had someone who told me just how strong that I was and this, that, and the other, and really emphasized this strong and how courageous I was. And I mean, I took it gracefully, but it really sat wrong with me. And when I saw my therapist, I'm like, I said, this is ridiculous because this is far from what I feel like, the internal chaos that's going on in me. Yet I've got someone saying this to me. I said, it's so far of the opposite ends of the scale that it just makes me feel like what's wrong here. I need to be a little bit more the other way so that people aren't thinking that that's what I am. And she said, look, she said, this is the thing, the idea that you have of yourself is yours and yours alone, because everybody, whether they've met you in depth or they've just kind of met you in passing, everybody has a different idea of the person that you are and who you are. And she said, so there's really thousands of versions of you out there walking around. I mean, even as close as, your sister or your next door neighbor, like there's so many different versions of you, and you'll never know what they are because that person has that themselves about you. So that was really quite profound for me, because I'm like, wow, that really is something that it's just different. It really is different. So um,
I read something from Jimmy Carr, the comedian.
he's brilliant.
Yeah, he is funny. He's very intelligent. Like
He's
he's
very
very
intelligent. That's honestly,
he
that's
is.
probably one of the
Yeah,
reasons why I started listening, because I at first you can't miss that laugh, but I thought he's a bit of
yeah,
a, but then when I was listening to what he was talking, and I thought he's so well spoken, he
he
knows what he's
is.
talking about, and that's
He
what
does.
I
Yeah.
really I really like. The fact that he's so crude is just like
He made a comment, and I'm paraphrasing here. Can't remember word for word, but it's basically the difference between being sad and having depression. You know,
yep,
there's a difference between having depression and just feeling sad in life.
yep.
You know, I'm gonna have to look it up and I'll send it to you. But there's a difference in just being depressed and feeling depressed and being clinically depressed, or there's just been a feeling of just being sad.
Oh yeah, it's
There's a
it's a
massive difference.
it's a
Massive,
massive it's a
yeah,
massive difference, and I think it's for me specifically, it was being unaware about that. I used to refer to my grief as the big black sack, because that's what it felt like. It felt like it was this big black heavy sack that was surgically attached to me, and I had to drag it around wherever I went. So whether that be work, the supermarket, the washing line, like it didn't come off. It was with me 24/7. Now over the years, I mean the sack's still there, right? But it's not as heavy as it was. It's not as hard to drag around. Over time, it's gotten more heavier and then it's gotten lighter. With certain events that were coming on or times of the year or things like that. Like it certainly
yeah,
ebbs and flows, but
yeah.
that was the way that I kind of, you know, explain it to my therapist. I said it's this big, and in my head I imagine it to be like this big vinyl, heavy duty plasticky sack that was just, it couldn't come off. I couldn't untie it. I couldn't cut it off. It's just there. So I just have to maintain
Dragging
and
it
keep
around with
dragging
you.
it around. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
and sometimes it's full and sometimes it's this and sometimes it's that. But, over the years you get a little bit of a sore back because you've had to carry it, but it's just yours. And I figured, if I can't get rid of it, which you literally can't, then I'm going to bling it up with something that fits in with the rest of me,
Yeah.
and I'm going to wear it well, and I'm going to wear it in a way that isn't shameful or anything like that. I'm going to wear it as part of me. This is this is my third arm.
Yeah, that's it. And it shouldn't be something to feel shameful about. It's
No, I think a lot of
dragging
people
it
do though, and
around with
I think
pride.
that's a problem.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
I
I
think
think what,
depression is so far ranging. I remember someone saying to me once, because they were having issues with their partner and everything, and she thought something was going on, and then halfway through the conversation, which she was deeply affected by, and she said, "Oh my God," she said, "I can't tell you this." She said, "This doesn't even pale in comparison to what you're going through." And I said, "Wait, wait, 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 wait." I said, first of all, I said, everybody, I said, this is just as important. Like, if we're going to, I mean, I don't think, people get into pissing contests or whatever else. I think that's a lot of the problem too, is that people are always in competition trying to one up each other. And it's not the point. The point is that what I find incredibly affecting, it doesn't have to be on the same kind of tragic level, but it doesn't mean that you feel it any less. I think that everybody is still in that kind of, it's like a competitive scale as to whose trauma is the worst kind of thing. And
yeah.
I think that's a greater part of the whole mental health problem, is that it's not a competition. It doesn't
No,
have
it's
to.
not. It's not a competition to
No.
see whose dick is bigger than the others. So
Yeah. Yeah.
So just thinking about what we've spoken about today, having that support behind you, reaching out to get support, not with just yourself but within your family,
Yep.
has helped you moving forward.
Um, yeah, I think my biggest thing that helped me move forward was to be more in touch with myself. And not that I was out of touch with myself, but I had two young children. I was a busy mum doing stuff. So I think I had kind of, I wasn't up to scratch with how I best, kind of look after me, to do that. I think certainly my sister has been instrumental. Unfortunately, she is 2 states away from me, so we could only ever be, in touch on the phone and things like that. I think that being away from my immediate family really did affect me for a while there, because I did feel very much alone sometimes, and not anything against them. It's just a different way of how it was kind of processed. So I think the biggest thing for me was to be able to, yes, have those supports around me, because I mean the support of my husband is absolutely institutional, but at the same time, when he's struggling the same way, it's hard for two broken
It's
people to
going
be
through the
propping each
same
other up,
thing.
right? So I think what was the best was the working on being able to be the best me, but also being open to a level of understanding about what other people feel about a certain situation. In the beginning, I was quite, I think, upset when people would say things to me that sounded like they were recited from a Hallmark card or whatever else, about God taking, the best ones that are young. And I'd be like, do you know how offensive that is? So over time, I've come more to appreciate that in Western society, we don't deal with it as well as maybe, some other cultures that are very much, when someone passes away, just how they go about that process. But again, that's not me making a decision or like a criticism about that. I just think that the way that anyone acts in any situation in regards to that is not necessarily a fault. I don't find, I don't take things to heart like that anymore. My heart is a precious place, and I have learnt not to clutter it up with things that don't matter. And I think that's been the biggest thing for my mental health journey, is to be able to own what's mine and be able to move with that, and not, be affected by what people do around me.
Yeah, that's it. And it's not easy due to the circumstance of the
Oh,
tragedy.
absolutely not. Because I mean, it's completely emotional. When I talk about losing Harper, it's awful.
Yeah.
It doesn't get
Yeah.
any easier. And there's lots of things that come to it. So it's just about, how can I best um, live what time I have left with what I've got.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to have a chat with you today.
Thank you.
It's not easy,
No.
but it's therapeutic. I believe it's therapeutic. Not
Oh, I 100% I agree. I think it's really important to speak about things, because without it, we're just all bottled up, and that's no good either. Yeah, still. Um, Oh,
Well,
there you are.
we're back. We're still on. I think we're still recording.
Okay.
Um, I Yes, we are good. That's right. I was literally you froze on me.
I know,
Um,
and I'm like, oh, his face is frozen. I'm on it, and I'm like, should I keep my face still or?
no, that's all right. And
But
that's a good thing about these recordings. I'm not getting all fancy and editing and all this kind of shit. It's these raw conversations that we've been having.
I like that idea better, right? Because
Yeah,
there's so many
yeah.
things now that are just manipulated, whether it's with AI or it's this or it's that, whatever. And it's just like, I don't, and it's so clever now. I don't know. It's hard sometimes to tell what's real. So I do appreciate the nuts and bolts kind of rawness of it, because I think, if you want to get an authentic answer, then you've got to really, you know,
Well, that's it.
do
And
it
a
like
a lot of the people I've been talking to, they say, "Oh, can you send me some questions and stuff like that?" And it's like, well, no, I'm not.
no.
I find it flows better. There's more of an important conversation, an important topic to talk
Well, I
about.
want I want honest answers. I don't want
No,
pre-recorded
that's it.
kind of.
No, that's right.
I don't
So,
want pre-organized answers.
no.
If you ask me a question, I think that's a lot of it too. We do reference transparency a lot in our work, and I think it's really important for authenticity. I think it's really important to be honest and open and transparent. So
That's it.
sometimes it's
Oh,
not.
mate.
Sometimes it's not particularly comfortable, but that's just part of it, I reckon.
Yeah, that's it. And that's it. And within that, I'll let you go.
Thank you.
It's again, I appreciate the conversation. It's been a good conversation to have, and I really appreciate your time this afternoon.
Oh, thank you for having me.
No, no, all good, mate. All good. All right. I will see you soon. Okay.
Bye.
All right. See you, mate. Bye.